good morning, everybody. Good morning. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us this weekend. Want to offer a few announcements and then talk a little bit about this format of State of the School. The first announcement is about those of you who have signed up for lunch with Samantha Boardman, who is a current parent, an author, a clinical psychiatrist who's working on what she calls positive psychology with many of her colleagues in the field. She was supposed to talk with a select group of you, I guess, who signed up for this lunch later today, and unfortunately this week called us, and she's sick. So we're doing the soft shoe dance a little bit, and what I've done is asked some of my colleagues who have a variety of leadership positions around school to come to that lunch. So that lunch is still on for those of you who signed up for it. And just a way for you to do a little deeper dive with me and my colleagues as you grow to understand Millbrook a little bit more. So that's one. Two, a little bit about the format today. I didn't want to be so scripted. So I hope you all received the email from me in which I asked for your questions. What do you want to hear about? What do you want to know more about? And perhaps it'll spark a little bit of dialogue, which would be fun and interactive for me. And I've asked Erin, my wife, you know, when you move into school leadership, you're often, and you have a partner in life, you're doing it together. So I asked her to join me today. She called me her emotional therapy support lapdog. But as Erin, that's not what, although that does make me feel really comforted to be on stage with her. And she may even chime in, because you know what? She asks me the hardest questions, you don't. And she often gives me great answers. And as I said, you know, we're in this together, and so I thought it might be a way for you to get to know Erin and me as a couple leading Millbrook School. And so we've got about 14 questions that were submitted. There may have been more, but what we try to do is distill those questions. Some of them will be presented to you in the words of fellow parents, and some of them I had to do a little bit of editing. So they'll be presented in a sort of briefer, more concise form. And I'll do my best. I have some goals for you as I answer these questions. One is just that you develop an even deeper understanding of Millbrook, who we are, what we're about, who we want to be, who we've been, and who we're not. So that's one goal for today. And then two, I always look at you know, going to another school or professional development day or a conference as an opportunity to take one or two things that I might carry with forward in life. And so just to establish my goals, if you walk away with one thing, one phrase, one technique that may help you in your relationship with your child and or Millbrook School, then I've accomplished the goal. So does that sound okay? Good? All right. Without further ado, we'll start. We've put the questions on a slide so that you can see what your fellow parents have asked, and then I'll just roll with basically some ways that I would answer it. I don't know that I can go into total depth on every question because we just don't have that kind of time. So I'll try to do my best. What a great English teacher said to me once is say as much as possible in as few words as possible, and that's what I'll attempt to do. If I start spinning out of control, someone will let me know. We'll be good there. Lauren, can we pop up the first question? Oh, and I have one other thing. So there are 14 questions. 13 of them are honest-to-goodness questions that were asked by you. One is a lie. So you can play this little game. You know, Two Truths and a Lie, that game you're on a road trip. So you can play this game with me. You see if you can detect the question that is the lie. It's not. Yeah. No, this is honest to goodness, and it came in a lot of different formats. How can, or Aaron, you can, what am I doing? What am I doing here?
How can parents be more involved and best support the school?
So, do I need a mic? No. Shannon, are we okay up there? Okay, I'm trying to boom it a little bit. Can't make any grand proclamations of whether or not we're out of the sort of cloudy chapters of COVID, but what has felt really good in the last 6 weeks of school in session, that is 2 weeks prior to March break, and then the 4 weeks here in the second half of the second term, is that we've been able to sort of reset. We've established some rituals and routines that were a normal at Millbrook School 2 years ago. And today is a testament of one of those rituals and routines. That's you're here. So the first thing I would say is be a presence. If and when you can, many of you I know have come from far to be here today, but if and when you can, one of the new school boarding school ideas is that parents are a presence, that you are, that's an interesting Freudian slip, you're a present. You are at games, you're at performances. If and when in the Hudson Valley you swing by, and in normal years you might see parents in the dining hall having lunch with their sons and daughters just to catch up. I think your presence matters in your child's experience and in our relationship with you. That's how you'll get to know the school. 5 things I would add to that, and our board chair regularly tells me that 3 things is all you can ever do. If you say, okay, Erin says to me, okay, get celery, carrots, and potatoes at the grocery store. If she adds 2 more things on, I forget them all. And I just start throwing it, right? So, but I'm going to give you 5. The first is a reminder, right? We talk about the triangle when you drop off your children at Millbrook School. Just for a review, the triangle looks like this. At the apex is your child. You are at one corner, Millbrook School, and your son or daughter's advisors at the other. Most children try to flatten the triangle so that all that we hear about you is through them, and all that you hear about us is through them. That is not good. That is not a healthy relationship. What we need to do is keep that open. And that's a two-way street. We have formal times of the year where our advisors reach out to you, but it's also really important that you are staying in touch with your son or daughter's advisor if and when you're not hearing anything, or you'd like to have some information, or there's an event in life that you really think that the school should be informed about. So keep that in mind. 2, heard a great, I often talk about our jobs as educators and parents, is to raise an independent child. Wow, just think about that, how good that's going to feel. Independent in thought, independent in creativity and critique, independent financially. Maybe you'll even live the dream and your child will take care of you someday. Be amazing. Heard the other day a great Michelle Obama quotation where she said, it's our job as parents to have our children not need us. And I really like that, because we're at this counterintuitive point in life where you spend, especially those of you who have third-form children, you spend your whole life building a nest, putting your arms around your child, protecting them, giving them opportunities, and now they are growing away from you. And I don't really need to convince boarding school parents of that. You all understand that. You all are actually a special breed. You're one of there's fewer than 0.5% of students in the United States of America who actually get to go to boarding school when they go because their parents give them permission. So you already do that. But we have to remember that's the balance, that's the seesaw that we're on right now, is letting go a little more, a little more, a little more, a little more. 3, how can you help? What can you do? Donate, and I don't mean just money. I really don't. My children would often ask me, especially when I was the assistant head of school, Dad, what do you actually do? Like, what, when you're gone all the time, what are you doing? And I say, I actually try to go meet people and ask them for the 2 things that they want to grow the most. I ask them for their children, I ask them for their money. And then I think what happens out of relationships that I've built in the past and Drew's built in the past and our team has built in the past is that a lot of good ideas come out of the dialogue that we have with parents. You know, it's really interesting nationally that public schools, often urban public schools, are all research will say more parental involvement, more parental involvement. You've got to get involved, and this is going to help your child's education. And then you move out to the suburban independent schools, and it's, whoa, less involvement, allow them to go. It's really interesting how that works over socioeconomic class in the United States. And I think as a result, independent school educators are sometimes fearful of parental involvement. I'm telling you that we are not. I've had some great ideas come out of this parent body. We go back to isolating in dorms last year. It was a parent who said, let's come up with a buddy system. Think about honoring students. It's that time of year. It's a parent in this room who said, you know, you actually don't do anything to honor the prefects. Or what about the DEI leaders as a new position? How do we honor them and have their name somewhere where they can come back and remember their experience? Great ideas come out. One of my favorite fundraising ideas was a parent who said, yeah, I'd like to put in a softball field. And we said, you know what? That's not a part of our vision, and I'd really like you to see what we're trying to do. And that parent said, well, how about I do that, and whatever that costs, I'll put into your vision. Okay, we can work with you. Four, be frugal about the extra stuff. It seems like in this day and age, everybody, if I go play catch with a kid, I'm going to send you a bill. There's opportunities for tutoring everywhere, testing everywhere, college counseling, I should be nice about this, college counseling, extra support everywhere. You have it here. You spend a lot of money here. We have experts who've spent their whole career, live, breathe this stuff every day. Use the school for what we have. If your son or daughter needs that weightlifting coach and just have to have it over the summer, I'm not saying don't do it. I just say be frugal about it. One of my favorite advisees of all time arrived here with a team of tutors, head tutor, and then in each discipline that reported to the tutor. No lie. And fortunately, had really reasonable parents who we said, our goal is by, I'll work with you, but our goal is by the end of sophomore year, fourth form year, you're going to let him go. And we got there. He was just fine. He's advanced honors, AP, everything. He's crushing it at Claremont McKenna in California right now. And he's doing it all on his own. It's back to that independence we're talking about. And then finally, one of my favorite heads of school says, Penny Riegelman, Newark Academy, it's where I kind of cut my teeth in teaching. She would say, resilience can be built by some intentional, benign neglect. Let them fall, let them fail, let them be a little afraid. Not a lot afraid, little afraid. Tony Jarvis, who's passed away, was a 37-year head of Roxbury Latin in Boston. Amazing head of school. And he had this great essay on the 3 great American tragedies: not getting a grade you want, not getting the college that you want, and getting cut from a team. And he was a tough guy. I'm not Tony Jarvis. He would stare people down and sort of boo-hoo them. Those are real and sometimes feel like suffering to children. I like to keep in mind the life of Abraham Lincoln when I think about resilience and toughness. And those of you who know his life, you know, leading the Union through the absolute hardest time in American history, a civil war, his fiancée died when he was in his early 20s. And then he remarried, and he had 4 children. And 3 of those children died before they were 18. And then he had several failed businesses, wasn't elected to the simplest of elections. And when you look at his early life and all of the challenges he had to go through, you might draw a connection and a parallel to why he had the resilience and fortitude to lead the country through an incredibly challenging time. So that's my answer to the first question. I have to speed up.
Well, I was going to say, like, that was a lot.
It was,
We're not making good grades here.
we can do this. Aaron said, what if I grade you publicly? Okay, I'll shorten it up. Okay.
How does Millbrook prepare students for I'm doing great at my job too. How does Millbrook prepare students for college and lives of meaning and consequence? How does a high school do this? How does a boarding school do this? How does Millbrook do this?
Straightforward, it's in our mission. By instilling our values, respect, integrity, service, stewardship of the natural world, and curiosity. We have a 30-year trustee, Chris Holbrook. I've actually wrote about this publicly, so don't mind saying it to you now. He loves to say, I carry Millbrook with me. Because we've instilled it while he was here, and he carries those core values as he moves forward. I have a good friend and classmate, I forget if it's the AHL or CHL, but he's a professional hockey coach, and his team motto is non sibi sed cunctus. And he's out in the Midwest. It carries it with him. So, you do that by focusing on those values, which we do annually. This is our year of service. Next year will be our year of being stewards of the natural world. And I don't want to say we beat it over our children's heads, but they have to understand what we stand for. So that's one. Two, by equipping our graduates with the skills and knowledge and passion needed for college and needed to be productive citizens in a democratic society. I just said in a ceremony before, Mr. Poling said great teaching was imparting passion, knowledge, and skill through the force of personality. That's how we do it. And then exposure to worldviews that are bigger than themselves. Man, boarding school is a great opportunity for that. We have 24 states and 19 countries and people of all sorts of ethnicities and religions, and that'll do it. And then there have been longitudinal studies through the Association of Boarding Schools, and we've even done our own studies here, and they align with what boarding schools can do in terms of preparing students for college and lives of meaning and consequence. First, number one, time management. You build a routine and a schedule that pushes children to make choices, to compromise, to fall a little bit, and learn how to manage their time. Self-advocacy. How do you work with adults who are not your parents? That's a really important skill I need not convince any of you in college and beyond. And then the interpersonal relationships that come with residential life. That is a huge advantage here. Most children who go to a residential college or university have never done that before. And boarding school, it's like old hat. Pull out the old bin, you've done this, set up the room, boom. I know how to get through a few roommate conflicts. We're good to go. There's 2A.
Oh. In an age where teenagers are being pushed and pulled in all directions with so many diverse talents, how do you engage with them strategically and systematically to help them, for example, differentiate a hobby from a career, or help them explore fields they might not even be considering?
You're in the right school, because we've been a school that's resisted specialization for all of our existence. We continue to. It's a challenge. A lot of people out there saying, what are you going to major in high school? I go, what? That's not going to be Millbrook School. It's going to be a school that celebrates being generalists. We push, try to play a few things, be on a team, try something new. This is the place to explore, to discover, to find out something. If you leave Millbrook and you found out nothing, you did nothing that you had never experienced before, we failed. So we push. I often think about the Latin roots of the word curriculum. It basically means race course. We build the course. We put the obstacles in to help you explore and discover. And then, we bring faculty in who believe in the mission, who want to educate your children holistically. They want to see your child in ways that are not sort of singular and categorical, but whole. And your children see us that way, right? They see Aaron and I at a Sunday brunch when our children are having a hissy fit and all of the flaws. We live our life on public display. And then we see your children through those many lenses as well. And what happens, this is the magic that happens, is when a child then has an emotional connection to an activity or to a person or to a thing, he or she will rebound faster from failure, they will retain more, they will work harder. That is the essence of all brain research. That is the top. When I had to apply for this job through our Board of Trustees, that is, if you want to go to the heart of my educational philosophy, that's it. So those emotional connections happen.
A lot of hissy fits at brunch.
Yeah.
High school too.
Yeah, yeah.
What are your initiatives to not only retain talent, but also to leverage Millbrook and attract great talent in this changing environment?
All right, so I was going to, I'll pop through. We have kind of 6 focal points of what is a shared strategic plan built through the Trustees Administrative Committee. That's a leadership team with feedback from faculty, and then our Board of Trustees. And those are enrolling the students we want, what we call our faculty covenant, and that's where I'm going to come to this question, educating for lives of meaning and consequence, being fiscally and physically fit, having proud, informed, engaged alums, and having inclusion and diversity be part and parcel of everything that we do. That's our strategic plan in a nutshell. That's it. The faculty covenant, we are working vigorously on a lot of things. There's a lot of competition out there for talent, as this question suggests. First is compensation and benefits. We regularly benchmark with peer schools to make sure that we're in the game to play and that we're taking care of our faculty in that regard. Faculty housing, bringing some of our apartments in the dorms out of the late 19th, early 20th century, even though the school wasn't founded, but we're bringing those apartments kind of up to grade, and then we have plans for 6 new faculty units, which will really help what is now a shortage. We are currently renting 5 or so, I'm looking at our CFO, 5 or 6 apartments off campus, and we're actually fortunate enough to be gifted a couple places from friends of the school. And we want, I think what you want, I mean, the more adult presence on campus, the better. So we want as many faculty, teaching faculty, coaching faculty that we can to be on this campus. And then what's always attractive to teachers, because teachers are generally, not all, but generally inherent learners, is just increasing our commitment to professional development. You know, I'd love to someday have a professional development fund that is so robust that when any teacher comes in and says, I want a PhD, they don't even blink. Say, yeah, stay at Millbrook for the next 5 years, let's do it. Not even a question. Wouldn't that be wonderful? And that would help us to keep and retain. So all of that true in the context of what I see our Dean of Faculty up there, what we call growth and renewal. So a systemized way of offering observations and feedback with our faculty so that they can continue to grow and renew. And what I mean by that, in case many of you don't spend a ton of time in the classroom, is as 2 English teachers, we named our son Atticus, you know, taught To Kill a Mockingbird. When you get to the 6th or 7th year, sometimes you need to be renewed. It's wonderful work of literature, but renewal is important. So. Next.
And this is a 3-parter.
Oh.
Okay. What has changed for you from the fall to the spring? What are some things you really want to achieve now? What might be some things taking your sleep at night? All the time.
Yeah, I'm going to plead the 5th on the I'm going to plead the 5th on the last one. No. First part, what has changed for you from fall to spring? The positives. So the positives. Rhythms are starting to be found, and I feel like Millbrook was back. We got end of February. Mamma Mia! There were people dancing in the aisles. We had just finished a winter weekend. We had 5 of our 6 varsity winter teams in the hunt for the New England tournament. If any of you heard about our boys basketball game against Pomfret, it's a good opportunity for me to step on that school a little bit. It was electric. The whole school was out. And I'll talk a little bit about that. I know there's a question about athletics later. So that's the positives. I think it's the first time in 2 years we had 4 weeks in a row where we had formal dinner, a great chapel talk, every assembly, and now some ceremony and ritual that we haven't had in a while. And so that's the positive. The negatives of what has changed, and actually what we're working on, it's a part of what I want to achieve. I think roommate issues are up. I was talking to Shannon Vollmer, who said Colgate in its entire existence hasn't had as many roommate issues as it's had this year. It's interesting. I see a lot more at Millbrook School, which I didn't in the past, and maybe this is just true everywhere now, but the buds are in the ears. Everyone like rocks them like they're earrings now, like it's a fashion statement. And I don't know if they're listening or if they just leave it in because they don't want to put it back in the case. I think you said that to me. Yeah. She was like, yeah, they don't want to lose them. They're expensive. But it's different. And then more than, we have better Wi-Fi. I mean, I'm sure you've heard complaints about our Wi-Fi. It's improved a lot. We have ways to go. And because of it, I just see the phones out more. And I think because of the 2 years of just, the sort of pacifier effect, they're just out more. And so things I want to achieve and the things I think we can work on and that keep me up at night. Any of y'all see the Atlantic article that says, why children, teenagers in America are so sad? Mm-hmm. It's a pretty good article. And it was one of those articles where I'm sitting next to Aaron, I'm reading it going, they've stolen all of my stuff. This is exactly what I'm worried about. It's like great writing. I always hate great writing because I either wish I wrote it or I hate it, which is also a line I stole from Midnight in Paris, if you know that movie. Social media, this is why. The article says this is why kids are sad. Social media. It's the irony of feeling connected. I had a great conversation with our alums from the 90s about this, how it's changed boarding school. Boarding school actually is a great leveler. Sort of there's an equilibrium. We all eat the same chicken patties, live in the same dorms. And now our children see everything else that every other child is doing. And that's hard. Inside in mind, out of sight, out of mind. We talk about our daughter if she sees an ice cream sundae in the morning and how fun that is all day to hear about the ice cream sundae. But it's the irony of feeling connected and you're not. The second thing they said in the article was socializing is down. That being alone sometimes leads to loneliness, which doesn't mean it's the same thing, but being alone leads to loneliness, which often leads to depression. Two things that torture human beings more than anything. Being alone and dealing with the unknown. World is stressful is the third thing that the article poses. Gun violence. War, global warming, confusing politics. It's just in front of our children's faces all the time. And then I don't think it's any of you in the room, but the fourth thing the article says is modern parenting strategies, bubble wrapping children. And I actually compliment to those who send their children to boarding school, that's really not your profile. I've worked in high-octane day schools. You all are collaborative, right? You have to trust us. You do. You're dropping off your child at a boarding school. And so that combination is the worry. And as I think about what's next and what do I want to achieve, it's resetting our culture and our expectations. And I do believe boarding schools and summer camps are kind of the antidote to those things. All of a sudden, the social network is the dorm. There is socializing built in to the curriculum. And for better or worse, you want to argue with me on this, stepping away from some of the world stuff so you can focus on being a child and not be robbed of your childhood is a really good and healthy thing. So boarding school affords that as an antidote to the Atlantic article. Next one.
As a group, what makes the class of 2024 unique? Fourth one.
Yeah, this one, when I got this in the email box, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if anything makes them unique. I do think the fourth formers are the group, the largest group on campus who truly haven't experienced the full rhythms of Millbrook. And my faculty colleagues and I are still getting to know some of the bottom halves of their faces. I mean it. It's remarkable to me. And I think this sort of guilt, because it's so hard in some ways to deliver on our mission and really getting to know children, especially over the last 2 years. But what I say that I don't think they're totally unique is a head of school friend of mine calls sophomores the nadir of youth. That is the lowest point of a youthful experience. And it's because they're breaking out of the cocoon. The metamorphosis is happening. They're trying to be adults, and they're sophomoric is a great word. It's got an inherent contradiction. They are wise. They'll say something and go, wow, my kid is becoming the butterfly. And then they are foolish. They're so foolish and childish and huge. Some of them, some of these fourth form boys you're huge, and you're worse behaved than my 4-year-old. So this is when they break out. This is when they find their voice. And you even see it now as the sixth formers are thinking about the transition out of Millbrook. You start to see some of the fourth formers rise up. They're saying things in assembly. They're really starting to come together as a class. So time will tell. I don't know if I can define it fully yet.
What moments stand out to you from this year so far?
I think I kind of hit it on the other question, but the nightmare, I mean, honestly, when Omicron came through this campus, that was hard. I mean, you all, by the way, I should thank you. You were really kind to me and to my team. You really were. You know, some people would say, well, I have a question about this or that. You know, oh my gosh, we just dropped her off. Do we have to come home? Sorry. And it was really hard because we have people who have completely opposing points of view on how to move through that moment. But we did it. And you were all really collaborative and supportive and working with the school to try to just keep things going. So I'd say that stood out in terms of a negative. And then I told you about some positives. I mean, it's been sort of post that little chapter. It's felt good again.
All right. Knowing them and seeing them when we don't, what do you want us to know about the kids when we are not around? What do you think they want us to know?
All right, they don't want either of us around. That's, they simultaneously don't want us around, and they absolutely yearn for adult interaction, for structure, for order, for predictability. You know, it's like it's the mom, do not say anything in this session. It's like that's true. And they're critical thinkers, and they want to believe in things that are bigger than themselves, and we've got to let them test that out and try it on. I'm wary of time, but I got to tell this story, and she won't mind if I tell you it. Marilee Weil graduates a couple of years ago, and I was the acting head in the fall of 2019, and I came out right before Halloween, and I said, you know, just before you put on a costume, just look in the mirror and think about someone you love and respect. Would that person be really happy with the costume you have on? And I just want you to do that exercise. And I have all sorts of things in my head. And Marilee comes flying. We have this great relationship, and she comes flying into the office. She's like, Mr. Downs, you know, once again, a male figure is offering condescending remarks about female body imagery. And I go, no, I'm not. And she says, yes, you are. And I said, Marilee, this is what I said. And she goes, well, that's not what I heard. And I said, Marilee, you can't just say what you heard if I didn't say it. And then I said, well, guess what? This is where film is wonderful. Let's go look at the film, and we can watch what I said. And this is where I just respect this young woman. She looks at me and says, I'm just trying to find my thing. I don't know what it is yet. I just want my cause. I don't know why I even said that to you, but I just have this idea that I can be a voice for positive change. And what a beautiful statement from a child. So we got to let them do that a little bit, not drag them down when they have an idea that maybe isn't right or isn't wrong or isn't. But so I think that's it. And then the last part of this, one thing that Drew left me, he left me a few things, but one that he left me on the desk in the headmaster's office is a crystal paperweight. It's huge, and it says the Teenage Prayer. And it was written by Walker Zeiser, longtime English teacher at Millbrook School. And it says, "Dear Lord, please help me from being embarrassed today. Amen." I look at it every day. That's what they want you to know. What do we have next?
What are the next capital projects? I have heard that the athletic center will be expanded next. What is the timing of that project? Will it accommodate for new sports in the future? A pool? A crew tank? I'm interested to hear about this project as well as many other capital projects already in the works, new boys dorm, as well as some that may still be dreams, like an observatory, one of my dreams.
I love the parenthetical personal agenda in there, too. Like, just saying, John. But this was good ideas. And actually, we are putting in a new observatory kind of near the North Fields. Which did Jeff leave? I forget exact location, but there's less ambient light. There's less ambient light on the North Fields, and I think it'll be spectacular for the whole community. So we are wrapping up Polling Circle. You've seen the house that's going up. And then next to it will be an alumni development family and friends house that we have named, I think, is Mr. Anthony in the room? The board unanimously voted that it would be called the Anthony House after Bob Anthony. 48 years of service as a Millbrook faculty member. That's going to be, he loves to joke. He says, "John, the graveyards are filled with irreplaceable people." And I'm like, "Bob, I just don't know that we'll ever find it." But if you don't know Bob, you should get to know him. He's one of the funniest, most humble human beings you'll ever meet. We finished we moved some. We were supposed to move the tennis courts a couple years ago, and then we decided to use the donor who gave us the money for that funding. We decided to use that to complete our counseling offices sooner than we had planned, which now we have a room for group counseling. We have 2 beautiful offices for Sarah Stanton and Billy Tom, and it's my goal in the next kind of 18 months to add a 3rd counselor. I think counseling on campuses these days, as counseling becomes more and more normalized, is a really good thing. And generally, schools are looking at a 1-to-100 ratio. So, we're moving along there. Polling Circle projects we're wrapping up. We have simultaneously some faculty housing projects that will go when you drive in School Road. If you know Dr. T's house or the Turner's house, Emily Allen's house, Mr. Power's house, where those are in the field, they'll likely be sited out there. So that's in the works. And then we are gearing up for a major renovation of the athletic center, and it's a little premature. We're in a programming stage. We just hired the architects, SLAM, SLAM is the group. And we're looking at programming for an expansion of the Mills Athletic Center. Yeah, could we do this?
Oh, no, maybe there aren't pictures.
Are those pictures here?
I guess not.
Oh, yeah. So that's what, how does this work? So here is where the Anthony House will go. And then this is effectively a recreation of Polling House. And that will dramatically improve the entrance to the school, but also this team of 12 has lived back here in a double-wide trailer that's falling into the earth right now. And then this house, there's a question about the house later. When I get uncomfortable, I just make jokes. 12? 12 people? What did I say? You said 12. Are you fact-checking me? Not 12 yet. Okay, can I laser you out? You're just so efficient, you seem like 12. I don't know. So, you know, I like to make jokes. I say, yeah, well, the first thing I'm going to do, the kids ask me, what are you going to do when you become head of school? I'm like, well, the first thing I'm going to do is induct myself into cum laude because I got ripped off when I was a sixth grader. And then the second thing I'm going to do is hang my baseball jersey in the rafters before Pat Costin graduates from here because he's way better than I am. And then the third thing I'm going to do is just build myself a house. The reality is that this has been in the works for a while. It was time. It was really falling apart. We looked at renovating it, and then what we decided ultimately it was more cost-effective to just recreate it. I will tell you that Tom Poling, son of Edward Poling, who looks just like the boss, and he was an imposing figure, 6'4", handsome, kind of looked like Von Trapp in The Sound of Music. And Tom, I met with all 4 of the Poling children. They're, I think, somewhere between the ranges of 86 and early 90s. Bob could correct me here, but he won't because he has some tact. And he looks at me and says, John, it was really a wonderful moment. He said, John, I'm so happy you are the head of school. And if you ever get that in your life, that's pretty special. And then he says, why are you recreating that old, terrible house? And he goes, I hope it's not for us. There's no sentimental value. And I said, Tom, this was a really hard moment for me. Unfortunately, Mr. Poling, it's actually not just about you and your family. It's about the thousands of alums who have had this shared experience in this space. This is going to be a really this is the public part of the house, the old living room. You all will come into it next year, those of you who are returning. And then I'll read to third form in there, and we'll have faculty meetings of all sorts of occasions. This is a great place. So anyway, do we have the pictures of the athletic center? Can I do that really quickly? This is, so can we go back one? So a week ago, storm, rainstorm, teams are trying to practice. This is JV lacrosse in the lobby of Schoolhouse. I stopped and had to take a picture because I said, this is the problem. We've outgrown that space. Totally outgrown it. It was built for a school of about 250. You know, we were 330 if you count faculty children this year. Our hockey rink's compressor's fallen apart. There's no insulation in that building. The squash courts are in really good shape. The basketball court's in good shape. We have no proper field house when we want to go inside on the off seasons, the fall and spring seasons. And our weight room, this is the biggest difference. So I'm looking at Eliza. She remembers the Ray Gymnasium weight room that was right here that was about the size of, there was nothing in there. It was pretty archaic. And this was state-of-the-art in 1996, 1997 over in Mills Athletic Center, this weight room. And back then, even the college-bound athletes worked out a little bit. Now the whole cast and crew of Mamma Mia works out. There's a whole different, there's a whole different level of health and wellness. This is, you know, we like to dwell on the bad things. There's a really good thing. This generation like gets it. They want to be in shape. They want to work out. They want to eat healthy. And so it's mayhem in the current weight room. So what we're planning to do, we can move to the next slide. And again, this is dangerous because our board hasn't approved anything and we're just in a programming stage of dreaming, and then we'll have to do some value engineering. So we'll move the tennis courts. We're going to have 6 tennis courts. There's a proposal for 8, but we have to look at that. But 6 tennis courts in between the turf field and what is the baseball field. We're going to build a new hockey rink that faces sort of east to west here. And then the current rink, which is a nice Butler building, we will completely renovate into a field house for all sports seasons. And then a new weight room facility here. And if we could switch the slides, just show a couple. So this is all concept. All concept. Still got the sort of agrarian, classic aesthetic. And then if we switch the slides again. That's from if you're coming around the parking lot, there'll be a south lobby. What's really important to me, this building, the genius of the current building, there's a lot of things wrong with it, is the way that everything connects. It's adjacencies. Right? That lobby on a Wednesday or a Saturday on a winter day, and there's kids and dogs and parents, and moving through back and forth it makes our school actually feel bigger for opponents, because the student body can move back and forth and cheer on their friends. And so the real genius of how we move forward will be how we connect all of these facilities with that same spirit and that kind of thought around adjacency. So next slide. That's just a little look of how that might happen. Next slide. Okay. Did you find the lie? Well, my favorite author of all time is Oscar Wilde, and one of his many quips is something like, you know, the only lies I truly love are the ones that you completely commit to. And there we go. All right, next slide.
Okay. I very much support the goal of increasing diversity of all types at school, with the ultimate hope that all students are accepted and honored and can flourish for exactly who they are and become their highest selves. With this in mind, I'd love to know how the school is working to expand diversity, not just racial, but also geographical, including international, sexual orientation, gender, religious affiliation, income diversity, all equally important, especially with the challenge Millbrook creates with the numerous weekends where students are required to be off campus. The majority of students live within driving distance, but for many students and their families, especially those who fall under the category of diverse, having to travel, find accommodations, and take off work for up to a week can cost over $10,000 and be very complicated logistically. In effect, it increases tuition. Many of the diverse students that you are looking for simply cannot afford this. Have you thought of changing the policy of weekends where boarders must be off campus?
Thank you, Erin. So it's a great question, and as I said to you, one of our strategic priorities is making sure that inclusion and diversity are part and parcel in all that we do. The first part of the answer to this question is to make sure that you're inclusive right here at home. You're not going to go out and attract anyone to be here unless it's a place where people feel included. Ben Williams, the head of CATE, led our 10-year accreditation process through the NICEACE, the New York State Association of Independent Schools. And he said the best definition of inclusion that he's ever seen is needed and known. And so we've got to make sure that our students here do feel needed, do feel known. And we already have a really diverse population, ethnically, racially, socioeconomically. But the experience has to be good. Otherwise, it can't perpetuate itself. I think that's the first way I would answer that. The second component to that is, which I love, if you haven't met Prince Botchway, he's our Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. He said, needed and known is great, John, on the mission, but you also have to stress that everyone who's here has to feel like they belong. Which I really like. Current student whom I interviewed, remember, she came to me a year ago and just feels like, I just feel like it's not my place, I'm a visitor here. And I had to give her the whole pump-up talk. This is your school. I don't care what you think, this is your school. We don't have the exact same background, but I know the feeling that you have, and you have been accepted into this school, you've worked really hard to be into this school, and you better believe it. And actually, sometimes this stuff doesn't work, and sometimes it does. She was like, it is my school. And she's had a great experience. So one, it's got to work here. And then two, we partner with all kinds of organizations. And I will say, with you, if you want to do something great for the school, continue to bring families who can help us be more diverse. And I would say a richer educational experience for all through your connections. And then two, I'd say, well, three, boarding school has tremendous opportunity here. We are not locked down to the radius of our neighborhoods. We have the opportunity to be some of the most diverse, and we already are, some of the most diverse places at a high school age experience that you're ever going to see. And then I sort of separated out the weekend question in thinking about this because it is specific to that. We are making some progress here. We've had a few, well, more than a few, but a lot of requests to think about like these long weekends. These are a lot. And they're there by design. It's to give children a little bit of break and to give our adults a break. Remember, we're 24/7, 7 days a week with other people's teenagers. We are an interesting breed. And we also need breaks. And we have some capacity in our faculty who said, you know, I'd love to take on long weekends. For anyone who gets on a plane and comes to school, if they want to stay here at school, we can build some programming in. So we actually have that built in for next year. That's going to be a part of one person's responsibility. I think we're going to open it up to start just to people who get on planes. Now, if you go to an extreme and now you want to fly up from New York City, I'm not talking to you. But just for people who get on planes, this weekend program I think could be really good, you know, especially for international students who've never seen Boston or Philadelphia, right? Could be really good. And then we'll see if we expand that as we move forward.
One topic to address might be, what is the ratio of merit scholarships to athletic scholarships at Millbrook, and how can this stat be measured? In this day and age, money seems to be flowing more toward athletes than scholars, not just at Millbrook, but for other schools as well. Sometimes I believe society's priorities have fallen into imbalance because of the increasing emphasis on competitive success on the athletic field. In the end, most students coming out of high school stop playing interscholastic sports upon graduation, so why spend so much energy and resources on developing athletes rather than scholars? It's true that we always have limited resources for unlimited needs, and directing resources in a balanced, prioritized way serves the best interests of any organization.
Awesome. I want to take that. How am I doing with time? Can I keep you all? Barbara, what have I got?
I'm on my phone, excuse me.
Oh, unreal.
I get it, Barbara.
Unreal. Oh, no, okay. So I think at risk of being confrontational with this question, I don't view athletes as singular and categorical. It's just that's the one thing that you do. I look at our cum laude inductees from last night. 12 of the 17 are highly competitive varsity athletes. Those are the best students in the school. I look at the children who won book awards today. You have the strongest students in the 5th form class right now really want to be recognized by their teachers. A handful of them are being recruited to play in college athletics. I'll say this, I believe in athletics big time. I think that there are a ton of life lessons that are great for kids. It keeps them active, it keeps them out of the woods and doing bad things. It teaches them how to be a teammate, a role model, to play a role, to win with dignity, to lose with dignity. And I think that there are marvelous life lessons, and it's why our school continues to be committed to athletics. And it's bigger in our society, right? There's some things that we're not going to change. I was talking with the Najorks this morning about, wasn't it funny how when Appalachian State beat Michigan in football about 10 years ago, their applications went up, 19,000 applications were new. St. Peter's right now, getting applications like crazy. I'm not saying that that's right, but I think people like to be a part of spirited cultures and winning cultures. So this is the one thing I did prepare for, because I want you to hear this quotation that I love about athletics. And it's from a book was written about 15 years ago by Hubert Dreyfus. It's called All Things Shining, Reading Western Classics to Find Meaning in a Secular Age. This is it. Whether or not it's true is a matter of historical or sociological fact that sports now plays this kind of religious role in America. It is a claim that seems hard to dispute. There's no essential difference, really, in how one feels to rise as in one, there's no essential difference, really, in how it feels to rise as one in joy to sing the praises of the Lord, or to rise as one to sing the praises of a Hail Mary pass, the Immaculate Reception, the angels, the saints, the friars, or the demon deacons. In part, the association between sport and religion derives from the importance of community in each. Whether in a church or a baseball stadium, the awesomeness of a moment is reinforced when it is shared by others. When you find yourself spontaneously high-fiving the stranger sitting next to you in a world void of meaning, is really far away. I will say that the Pomfret game, Millbrook game this winter, it's my favorite moments because I look out and not one phone is out. The whole student body's there. That can be the power of athletics. Really quickly, on financial aid. Financial aid is some of the hardest work that we have to do at Millbrook School. We'll have way more qualified applicants than those who we can support. It's all need-based. We have, from time to time, had some alums, actually a past trustee, who have given us a little bit of money to say, hey, use this as merit award. Try to get this kid who has every other option in the world. I don't know that it's been an enormous success for us, but what we've really stuck to is a discipline around need-based aid, and then trying to find students who are going to be, well, first, it's an enrollment management tool. If we have no 9th grade boarding girls in the applicant pool, guess where a lot of aid's going to go? Second, who's going to contribute to campus broadly, deeply? And then you sift through the applicant pool to try to bring in students that will help the school rise. And right now, about 30% of our students receive some sort of aid. I thought this would be, I'll get really personal on it. When I came back here in 20 as the director of admissions, I thought it was going to be the greatest joy of my life. Because I believe independent schools can change the trajectory of a child's life like nothing else. As a basically full need kid who came to Millbrook School. So I thought it was going to be great. It was the absolute most torturous part of my job because we just didn't have enough to give. The one way you solve it, the one way that's sustainable, is keep building the endowment. You know, those schools that are lucky enough to be need blind, it's because they have a way to support that. So, next question.
I only have one burning question. In your beautiful new house, will you be putting a golf simulator in?
Yeah, and a rooftop jacuzzi and a reflective pool. This was a question that was asked. That's not a lie. Like, yeah, that's my priorities only go so far. So, next one.
Name 3 locations on your personal travel bucket list.
Yeah, Ireland, Argentina, and New Zealand. I'm more of a kind of rural, like natural beauty than I am necessarily big cities. So that'd be it. We haven't talked about that. You're laughing at me. When's that going to happen? We have one child at gymnastics right now, 2 at Little League games. Another one just at a lacrosse game got canceled. I'm like, Aaron's getting like, when the hell is that going to happen?
All right. Why does the school not offer more class trips? Would think it would be educational, memorable, and a great way to break up a long winter.
Yeah, you know, this is a great question. Again, not trying to sound confrontational with the question, having worked in day schools for 8 years and then having led class trips as a dean of students, we had that as a model, right? So when I was down at Providence Day School in Charlotte, North Carolina, 9th graders would go all together on an outward bound trip. 10th graders would go on to college. We went to UNC Chapel Hill and Elon. And then our 11th graders would go down to Key West to this sort of rudimentary marine biology thing. And then the seniors would go off to Cape Cod and Boston. And so they were really powerful. But what dawned on me, and this is actually why I wanted to come back to a boarding school, and while Erin grew up in day schools, her life was essentially a boarding school life, was that the day schools are just trying to do what the boarding schools have. Like, this is the trip. This is it. So I will say, though, I remember, maybe some of you remember this, Hotchkiss years ago, someone did donate, like, I don't remember if it was the senior class or the whole school, but they all went to Antarctica together. It's like, wow, wouldn't that be special? But I think, you know, logistically, I think cost, you know, we're bringing you from all over the country and the world to be right here. I mean, this is the trip, so let's go.
Worldwide, are there more doors or wheels?
So I appreciate this question a ton. I was thinking about it a lot. And, you know,
It was causing you to not sleep at night.
This is it. This is the one, why I'm not sleeping at night. And, you know, I think we have to define wheel. If you have to define wheel, you have to define door. And I was thinking about my own house would be a terrible microcosm because I'm not reflective of the rest of the world. I think most people would have one door, if that. If you think about all of humanity, the 8 or 9 billion people that are on the planet right now. What?
All right, should we like move along? You really want to answer this
Well,
question?
I also want to say, like, is it a door or is it a doorway? And if it's a doorway and we can count species that are not human, I'm going all door. But if it's straight up door, then I'm probably going to go wheels. Okay, the next one.
Edward Pulling put community at the center of Millbrook's educational program. Much of that vision came out of his experience during the Great Depression. How are today's current challenges, for example, vast income inequality, accelerated climate change, decline in civil discourse, reframing Millbrook's continued commitment to making sure all kids are known and needed?
I love this question, and simple answer, and then I want to expand on it a little bit. I think in times of challenge, in times of what feel like they're dark, of the unknown, you got to double down on your mantras and on your mission. You got to double down. And you know, this is non sibi sed cunctus, not just for oneself, but for all. I won't wax on about an age of individualism that I think we're experiencing right now, but not just for oneself, but for all. As Drew used to say, that's the simultaneous pursuit of the best self and the common good. And sometimes those things are at tension. Sometimes I think what's best for, you know, an individual may think what's best for that individual may not be what's best for the common good. And so we have to acknowledge the tension and double down on the idea that we're trying to do both at once. Leave it better than you found it is a Millbrook mantra. You know, it's something we were talking a lot about through this Earth Week. We did roadside cleanup, and then I tried to talk with our kids about the microcosm of Millbrook and the little pieces of trash I occasionally find and the gum that I find on our sidewalk. We have to continually put those examples in front of our children. And then Mr. Poynn's words as he founded the school in the Great Depression. This is a school that will be conservatively progressive. That is not a political statement, it's a pedagogical one. That is, don't jump on trends for a trend's sake. Don't do that. And don't just hold on to tradition for tradition's sake. But when there's a proven better substitute for a method in a class or content in a class, then make the move. Don't be afraid to change. So what I say is I doubled down on those missions. I read to you the abridged version of what Mr. Poynn said to the Princeton alumni body. Do you remember this from the fall? No? It really stuck with you, right? So Mr. Poynn said to the Princeton alumni body in 1937, in our too fast, too noisy, too challenging world. Remember, 1937, Stalin, Mussolini, Hitler, I mean, really scary time. Too fast, too noisy, too challenging world. The greatest threat to democracy is not foreign. It is the closed minds of supposedly well-educated individuals within our own borders. 1937. When I said that to the grandparents on Grandparents' Day, they erupted in applause. And he said, it's our job as educators to open minds. How do we do that? And this is the answer to this question. How do we do that? Mr. Poynn would say 3 things. Precision of language. Do not simply default to, I don't have words for that. Say what you mean what you say. Find an ability to be precise with language. That's how we will connect, and that's how we'll communicate what we feel and what we research. Second was, this is amazing, right? Validation of resources. That men and women typically pick up periodicals and magazines and papers that simply reinforce their own predispositions. Oh my goodness. So we got to validate the resources. And we got to look for things that maybe oppose our own points of view. And then the third is group inquiry. And this is what's so important. Now, that's community. There's no better model of democracy than group inquiry. Don't go at it alone. If I were to add my own fourth, I'd just say truly attentive listening skills, which I'm working on with your children as we get back to gathering. Every week I'm saying undivided attention. Truly great listening skills. And I think that's what opens minds. And then finally I would add a question from Revisit Day. Is someone said, how do you breathe in joy to the class? What are you doing? And I go back to what Mr. Poling said. It's imparting passion, knowledge, skills through the force of personality. When I came out here in the fall and I did a little dance that, honestly, it's not really in my, sort of like, it's not what I'm going to do. I just wanted to push an idea. I wanted to show you something, not tell you something. You got to have a little fun. You got to be a little goofy. You got to push the joy. I interviewed kids at Millbrook School for 10 years, and I asked them this one question. I asked a lot of questions, but this one I asked everybody. Take all the teachers in your life, put them on a cliff, push them off to their death, and save one. Save one. Tell me about why you saved that one. And we go, Mr. Downs, you're twisted. Like, that's messed up. Why do I got to kill my teachers? Like, just theoretically, just play with me. And then they talk about what makes a great teacher, and 8th graders know a lot. And the top 3 things, number 3, they're crazy, they're mad. Their discipline means the world to them. Like, you know, ask any student about Dr. Lacoste, what he thinks about physics. He's a crazy man about physics. The second thing is that the teachers care. They care about them as individuals, and they care about, as I just said, the discipline. I love the old adage, if they know you care, they will care to know. And kids say this to me. And then the top, number 1, they make it fun. They just make it fun. I thought I hated math, and oh my goodness, that math teacher just made it. You know, Mr. Stewart's celebration, the Olympic celebrations of knowledge just made it kind of more interesting and fun. So that's how we bring the joy. Is that it? That's it.